Welcome everyone. So you know how some people are lucky enough to have an attic, bonus room, or basement and turn them into a media or movie theater room? Living in a one-story house in Florida, I have no basement and my house is not big enough to have a bonus room, but what I do have is an extra bedroom. So in this video you'll watch me take this small bedroom and turn it into a media room. I'll go through all the steps how I planned it out, how to hit the studs hanging the TV wall mount, which includes some problem solving to achieve that. I'll go through all the steps to conceal all the media wires in the wall, from cutting the drywall for the low voltage mounting bracket and media plate, to how to pull the wires through the fire block, and then the right and wrong way to bring the electrical to the TV. Finally, how to hang IKEA cabinets to complete the look. So if you're interested in how to turn your small room into your media room, or just like picking up some ideas or tips with your home DIY knowledge, stay tuned because this project's pretty cool. Let's go. So this project of course started with a trip to IKEA. I decided on these IKEA cabinets. I call this one a cube, and this cabinet has 2 doors. I'm going to use 3 of them with the cubes on the sides. And for the TV, this 86-inch Samsung I had delivered from Sam's Club. Now assembling this cabinet is just like any IKEA ready to assemble furniture, and it's pretty straightforward. You just refer to the instructions and follow the pictures. I didn't include full assembly in this video. You can find that online. Just the mounting process, otherwise the video would have been way too long. But quickly, these cut slots accept the backboard, and these pegs that come pre-assembled go in these pre-slotted holes. You start it by pushing it into the larger circular hole, and you snap it together by pushing down and sliding the peg over to the other side. Here's a shot before I push my cabinet together, locking it in, and these are the brackets you buy at IKEA if you decide you want to hang your cabinets, which I'll be doing, versus setting them on the floor. Now before I start putting holes in the wall, I like to visualize the project. I'm a very visual person. I need to see it to understand it to plan out the project. I put painter's tape on the walls, and then I use paint cans with a wood board to hold the cabinets in the general area to see how it looks. I even simulated walking in the room, making sure the cabinets weren't too wide, and I have the TV in a good viewing position. I sat down on the couch to really make sure it feels right, and I'm not missing anything. Everything looked right no matter where you were sitting. The TV was centered to the couch. I'm using the end of the bedroom door to the wall that the closet's on as my 2 centering endpoints. Then I find the center between those 2 points and mark that on the painter's tape. Then take another piece of painter's tape and mark the center of the cabinet. This center mark will also be used to center the TV wall mount. Now the IKEA cabinets come with a paper template that's the exact size of the cabinets. The mounting holes for the brackets are marked on it. You just need to tape the template to the wall level. Now I want to point out that the painter's tape that I was using to give myself a visual of the project wasn't exactly level. So of course, make sure you set your paper template to a level before taping it to the wall. You just butt the paper against the level. You can see the paper template is not level to that lighter blue piece of tape. With the template up, I can see where I need to drill my holes and put an anchor for the hanging bracket. Let me show you what the first bracket looks like installed. Okay, here it is. The first hanging bracket is up, and I tape the other 2 templates up. This is how I hit the stud. I take my magnetic stud finder that has a powerful earth magnet. It locates the drywall screw, and that's where there's a stud, and you just move it over to find the next one and mark it with painter's tape. You want to make sure that you put at least 1 screw through the bracket into the stud. So the way that I do this is, I shoot my laser and line it up where I mark the stud with painter's tape, and where the laser line hits the mounting bracket, I make sure I put a screw. Here's that screw. Let me show you the anchors I used. I never used these dual power anchors before, but they spread open and I needed something that I can use through this beaded paneling, and they did work. Here are the 3 mounting brackets installed. You can see again how I put a screw into the stud. Let me show you what I did to the cube cabinets to make the install easier. I didn't want to have to purchase 2 more brackets or try to line up these 2 cube cabinets to each other and then to the bigger cabinets next to them. So I glued them together. They come with these clips if you're stacking them together, so I installed them for aligning purposes and for extra strength. This really worked out and saved me a step by gluing them together. The templates make it dummy proof, but I still would have had to add another bracket on each side if I didn't glue them together. You will see me next add clamps to the front and back just to make sure they glue to each other evenly. Here's a shot of the clamps on the back. So I capped off this one, put some wire nuts on it because it hits right in the middle and I don't need that outlet. I gotta decide how I'm gonna do this. I think I want to mount the TV mount first and take a look at the back of the TV and see where I have open spaces. You can see this is the coax cable that I run antenna TV through and a phone jack, but I turned that into internet. That's running on this side of the stud. So in this cavity here, So I kind of want to put the media plate somewhere here, and then the TV mount will be here. This is going to land in this cabinet, and that's where I'm going to put any devices so they can plug in. And I don't know if I'm going to bring the internet down to here, put a switch that can go to the devices, and then in this channel up to the media plate for the Apple TV and the TV, or I might keep the Apple TV in here. I got to figure this out, but this is how I do it. I kind of see this outlet is on this side of the stud, and this is in this bay here. This one, I only removed this. If this fell in a cabinet, I would have kept it, but it's right, and I didn't want to have to offset all of this just because of this. I could move it, but I don't really need another outlet here. If I moved it, I would actually put it maybe like here outside. So if you want to plug something in like a vacuum or whatever, but you know, there's one right here. So I'm just going to abandon this one. So my next move, I guess, I was going to take this paper, cut the hole out, then put the paper in the back of the cabinet so I know exactly where to cut for the back of the cabinet, and then put it back, and then I can pull this outlet through it. But I'm not decided yet what I really want to do. So before I start putting holes in anything, my next move is to mount the TV at least temporarily and make my plan where the media plate's going to go, and that's going to decide how I'm going to do my electrical and everything. That's what I'm thinking right now, so you guys know. Okay, I'm using this full motion TV wall mount. I've attached the TV brackets, and I have my laser on that same marked line I centered the middle cabinet on. Now I just need to use the template that came with the TV mount to check how it hits the studs. So I lined the laser line with the center line of the template. Now you preferably want to hit at least one stud toward the middle of the wall plate. Let me show you how this one lined up. I got pretty lucky. The most right slot is hitting a stud, and although the second stud is not hitting a second slot, I'll show you a little trick I do. Let me show you next how I determine the height of the wall mount. I measure the distance from the wall mount to the sides and bottom, then you just install it onto the TV, and you take your measurements from the mount to the edges of the TV. Then you take the template, and I measure up where I wanted the bottom of the TV to end up that's marked by the painter's tape, and mark a pencil line. Now I just need to align the template with its middle mark and bring it down to my pencil line I made, and then you can just double check everything with your side measurements to make sure it's going to end up where you want it left to right. And that's it. Now I use my level to level the template and use painter tapes to stick it to the wall. I mark on the template where I'm going to drill holes in the mount since there's no slots where I need them, and I'll add toggle anchors to the left end. Then I'll just make a pencil mark in the slots I need to drill the hole to add the lag bolts. After drilling a pilot hole in that mark, I start a lag bolt, just making sure I'm really on a stud. Also, by starting a lag bolt, it will make it easier when I go to hang the wall mount. Then once I feel I got it sufficiently started, I go ahead and remove it. Next, I drill that hole in the mount I need to add that lines up with the stud. I start with a smaller bit, then drill with a larger bit, increasing the hole's diameter to accommodate the lag bolt. So they got these brackets that you can buy so you can hit the studs. But I just drill a hole right into the mount, the TV mount itself, right where my stud is. I just put these screws here, just holding it until I can get these in. But that's how I do it. These were hitting a pre-drilled hole. This anchor here can hold 100 pounds, so it's still doing something. I had put those two in first, and then these two. I already had this hole drilled in the mount, and this hole drilled in the mount. With it up there, I leveled it, and then I added this. I drilled the hole into the stud, smaller than the lag bolt, and then I added the lag bolt. Next, I'm trying to get an idea where the fire block is. That's a horizontal board builders installed to stop the spread of fire running up the wall into the attic. But I've discovered in my past installs, this is a false reading this high up, and instead where two pieces of drywall meet. We will verify where the fire block is after we cut some holes in the wall for the media and data plate. I next take a peek in the wall through the phone jack so I can verify what I was expecting from what my stud finding magnet found. I see the far stud, and this box is attached to the stud on its right. You can see how it runs down this way. Now because of that, my plan is to go left of the stud. You can see with the cabinet paper template how I have some space to the left to enlarge this cutout. My initial plan is to add a 3-gang low voltage wall plate mounting bracket, so I have just enough space before hitting the edge of the cabinet. Let's cut out the single gang metal bracket next. The easiest way to cut this bracket out is with an oscillating multi-tool. It's screwed or nailed into the stud, so I bend my blade and cut through whatever's fastening it. Usually it's fastened in 2 places, so you just move it around until you feel you're hitting the fastener, and the oscillating multi-tool cuts right through it. I couldn't pull it out just yet, but since I'll be enlarging the cutout, I leave it there until I'm ready for that. and move on to the media plate cutout. Here's a quick shot of how the blade looks after I bent it. The media plate I use is from peerless-av. It comes with this paper template. You trace a pencil line around it, and I use my drywall jab saw, start it in the corner with a knock, and cut on the pencil line. I'm going to speed this up, but as you can see, it's pretty easy. After cutting the sides, I put a screw in the middle as a handle, so I can grab it, preventing the piece of drywall from falling in the wall. Then I finish up by cutting the top and bottom, holding onto the screw as I get close to the final corner. Let's take a look inside, and what's up with that footprint? Who steps on drywall before installing it? You can see the fire block is lower than my stud finder was indicating. The studs are where I was expecting, and you can see the coax and Cat 5e wire running through the fire block. Looking up, I don't see any surprises if I decide to bring the electrical from the attic. I dry fit the media plate to check it fits. Looking up, I can see the electrical for the receptacles, so I need to be careful when I drill through the fire block. Let's go drill our first hole. This is easy to do because of the large cutout for the media plate. I could stick my hole drill in the wall and use a 1-inch spade bit to drill the holes. You will see later shots of the drill in the wall when I drill the other holes.
I need to make this hole bigger. I don't know if I'm gonna tap into that outlet or just come down with a new wire for the outlet that's here and the outlet that's there. And then I gotta put the cabinets up. I gotta take the TV and hang it, but I don't know if the girls are gonna be strong enough to lift that. I might have to get my neighbor to come over.
Taking a peek in the wall, you can see the stud and how they ran the wires for the receptacles right under the fire block, but they are technically out of my way.
So there's a stud that runs on this side of the receptacle. And then there's another one running here and another one running here. Now I can come through the attic, cut an electrical line up there that's usually right where the light switch is for the bedrooms is where they run the power down. And then from there, it usually goes to the outlets. And I can cut into a junction box and then run a wire down here. And I think I want to put it on this side of the stud, like over here, because this is going to be the cabinet where this paper is. I think that's the end of the cabinet, so I can only go so far this way because I'm going to put a data that's 3 gang. So I don't feel like going up to the attic. So I have a stud here, stud here. What I want to try to do is take this long drill bit, go in the side here. Now I don't have that 3 gang plate yet, data plate, to cut this hole properly, but I know it's going to be bigger than what I've cut so far. I gave myself hopefully a cut big enough that I can try it. So I'm going to try to stick this in there to get through this stud, and then I'm going to pull all the wires out of this and stick it in there and into this box and pull a wire to here, and then I'll have to drill into this stud to bring the wire into here and then come back out up to here for this receptacle. So that's the plan. I don't know how it's all gonna play out. My first step is to try to drill this way and see if I can get through this stud, and then drill a hole this way and see if I can get it through there. So you see how there's 2 wires, 1 and 2 coming from the top. And I know just by looking inside here that 1 wire goes up and this way, and it probably goes to an outlet that's over here, but it's too far for me to reach. I'm gonna try to take my drill and drill with my long drill bit through this stud, and then there's another stud on this side of the receptacle, and go in and into that box by some miracle.
Now I want to point out, this is not how you do this. Seriously, this is probably 1 in 1,000 shot. You have to hit the back of the box, otherwise you won't be able to push the receptacle and the wires back in. The proper way is to drill lower and replace the electrical box. Also doing it this way, I couldn't put any kind of cable connector, but because it was going through the stud, the wire was protected from scraping on the box. You'll see me do it the right way when I add the other receptacle. I never thought this was gonna work, and I'm gonna have to drill lower anyway, but I got lucky.
No way I pulled that off. Drill through 2 studs and hit right at the bottom corner of the electrical box.
After a quick cleanup with my vacuum, I tie a wire through a hole that is on the head of my long flex drill bit. This hole's here for this purpose. For me, this was easier than trying to attach the 14-2 Romex wire directly to it. So I just tie this smaller wire into a loop and I tie it into a knot. I wasn't a very good Boy Scout and wasn't paying attention on knots day, so I just tie it into a standard knot. Next I take the ground wire and hook it over the loop. Then I take my pliers and squeeze the wires tight, then wrap electrical tape to hold it together for the pull. I always flip over the end of the tape so it's easier unwinding it once the pull is complete. Let's pull it. I just pull on the flex drill bit, then help the wire feed through the hole in the box, then continue pulling on the drill bit. I continue pulling the wire through the two studs. Here's a wider shot so you can see how I'm doing this. I can reach both sides, so at this point I can feed and pull at the same time until I have it where I want it. Next, I unwrap the electrical tape. That's the moment you appreciate you folded the end over. I just have to disconnect the ground wire from the drill bit head by feeding it back through the hole. Then I get the wire into its final position in the box. Here's a close-up shot. Listen to this next talk through.
So this cabinet is the width of this paper. I want to add a receptacle here. But as you can see, there's a stud there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this board just to get the width. Scrap piece of 2x4 is the same width of a 2x4 stud. I'm going to draw a line, and then I'm going to outline my hole I need for my electrical box. So that's my next move.
So I put a scrap piece of 2x4 and mark the two sides with my pencil.
So these little flaps, they spin up. They don't go past this. So I can put this pretty tight to the stud, but I'm going to keep away from it a little bit.
So now I know where the stud is. I draw level lines even to the previous phone jack and coax cable cutout. I place my single gang old work electrical outlet box face first and trace lines around it to mark my new cutout. Then I color in the middle just to make sure I can clearly see what I need to cut out. I erase any pencil lines not needed, and it's time to cut it out. I use my oscillating multi-tool and just follow my marks. I love this tool. It punches right through the panel in the drywall really easy. If you guys are enjoying this video, please remember to hit the like button and consider subscribing. It really helps me out to grow my channel. I again screw in a screw as I handle, cut the last part, and remove the cutout. I try the box and it fits perfectly. A little too perfectly. I had to use a small pry bar to pull it back out. I need to drill the hole to bring the wire through the stud next. So I use my spade bit and I drill a hole lower than the cutouts, which is what I technically should have done for that other box. I'm glad you're seeing the correct way. I cut the jacket back 6 inches with my utility knife, peel it, then cut off the extra. I'm using that scrap 2x4 so I don't accidentally scratch the floors. I just repeat that for the other wire. I line up the two wires and eye my last slice. This is one of my favorite DIY projects. I love wiring things up. I push in the built-in cable clamps a little bit to make it easier when I push the wire through. Then I feed the wire coming from the other receptacle through the hole I drilled in the stud. Then I feed the new wire that I'm going to run up to the media plate through that same hole. The 1-inch hole that I drilled in the stud with the spade bit can easily accommodate 2 wires. Okay, let's install the electrical box. This is super easy. I just feed the wires through the built-in cable clamps. You also can wait to strip back the jacket till after the box is installed, but for this situation, for me, it was easier to do it beforehand. So I feed the wires in, getting them into the position that I want. Then I pull the wires back through the hole in the stud as I insert the box in the cutout. It takes a little wiggling and maneuvering, but I don't want the wires tangled up in any way. So once I'm sure the wires are in the position I like, I push the box in. All that's left is to tighten the screws that flip the clamps up so they squeeze the box to the drywall. Don't over tighten them. When you start feeling the screw getting harder to turn, give it a couple more turns and leave it right there. I position the wire one final time below the media bracket cutout. Here's a shot to make it clear how I'm wiring this. This wire will go up to the receptacle in the media plate. Next, let's drill the rest of the holes through the fire block for the media wires. A drill fits in the media plate without the ability to be taken apart, but since mine can be, that's what I do to insert it in the wall. And then I attach my spade bit that has a long shaft. Okay, let's start drilling. You can see that first hole we drilled. I'm just going to drill 3 more holes between that one and the one that has the coax cable and the Cat 5e wire going through. We're going to next pull those wires back up. You will see why as we go through this. First, need to cut these zip ties. So I reach up with my diagonal cutting pliers and cut this lower one. The second one is much easier to reach into the media plate cutout. It's a much bigger hole to reach in. All that's left is to untangle them from the cut zip ties and pull them up through the media plate. Then I peel them apart. The reason why I'm separating them is because I'm going to run the coax cable directly to the TV and then have the Cat 5e wire go back down inside the cabinet. So I placed the coax cable over the TV mount to keep it out of the way, and I decided, now that these wires are out of my way, I want to drill one final hole. I'm not taking any chances that I regret not having enough, and this is the moment to do it. After drilling the final hole, I remove my drill out of the wall. I'm going to feed the Cat 5e wire through the hole I just drilled. So I just reach into the media plate cutout and drop it in. It takes a little wiggling and maneuvering, but I get it in the hole easily and feed it down. Let me show you what it looks like from under the fire block. Let's go in the wall and look up. You can see the blue wire coming down and it's waiting for me. and I just need to reach in and pull it out. Here's one last shot of it going through the fire block from the top and how it's coming from the attic. I hope this gives you a clear understanding how to do this. You'll see me add the Cat5e connector to this end in a bit. Let's pull the electrical up next. I'm going to use my flex glow rod. Let me show you how to use it. You just stick it in the hole that you want to pull a wire through. Check it out. You can see it glowing green, so it's easier to find in a dark wall. But I use the light from my camera while I'm filming, so it won't glow because of that. I just wanted to show you why it's called a flex glow rod. It's flexible and it glows in the dark. Anyway, I stick it in the far left hole, and then all you do is come back down and put your hand in the cutout and lift it back up and out. Because the rod is flexible is why you can bend it and pull it back out. And then we just need to attach the wire next. Check out how I do this. I use the ground wire because the pull is so simple and loop it in the rod connector. I don't even use electrical tape to speed up the process. It's such a short run that if it comes loose, I can just pull the wire back down and try again. So I pull it up through the hole and straighten it below. I need these wires out of the way when we install the low voltage mounting bracket, so I make sure I adjust them out of the way. Here's a shot on the wall so you can see everything. This white wire is going to the receptacle we tapped into and up to the media plate. All that's left is to disconnect it from the rod. So I bend the ground wire up and pull it loose. Because I didn't have to use electrical tape, it made this a little easier. I next pull the wire up a little more through the hole and leave it waiting for me out of the media plate cutout. I adjust it once again down below, so when we install the low voltage bracket, it's out of the way. And that's it. The electrical wires are ready. We will install the media plate soon and wire up the surge protective receptacle. Let's go back and finish working on the network wiring. I have to unwind and straighten these wires. I need to trace these wires back to the telecom distribution module. In most houses, you're going to have an area where your phone, internet, and coax cable land at. So I reinstall the phone jack so I can use my tone and probe kit to identify this wire at my telecom distribution module. You will watch how I do that next. So I reconnect the wires exactly how they were. I had taken a picture so I wouldn't forget, but it really doesn't matter for toning and probing. Like I mentioned, we're going to convert this from phone to internet. This is my Southwire multi-purpose tone and probe kit I bought at Home Depot. I plug in the RJ11 adapter cable, turn it on, and plug it into the phone jack. We need to hear this tone on the other end of the telecom distribution module to locate the other end of this wire. Let's go try it out. So I probe around these other blue wires and I don't hear anything. But when I get to this one, it starts to beep. It's that easy, guys. This is the wire that I will plug into my switch once we convert the other end to a Cat5e connector, eliminating the RJ11 phone jack. I have another video on how to wall mount a TV on my channel that actually goes through all these steps in even more detail. I'll link it at the end of this video and put it in the description if you want to check it out. Let's wire up the Cat5e connector next. I start by disconnecting the phone jack, then straightening the 8 individual wires. I'm going to show you how I'm going to match this end to the RJ45 connector on the other end. This is the Cat5e connector from Levington I picked up at HD, and I need to take note of the wiring order by color looking through the clear connector plug so I don't have to re-terminate it. Let me show you what I mean. I take a picture and note what color goes to what pin number. Before I show you how to terminate the Cat5e connector, I decided I wanted to finish installing the low voltage mounting bracket, so I match up the bracket to the electrical box and make my pencil mark. I clamp it to the drywall and then I trace my initial lines to mark my cutout, double checking that the bracket is still level. I remove the bracket, then I extend the initial lines with my level to fully trace out the cutout. As I mentioned earlier, I hadn't purchased this bracket at first while I was deciding my final plan, so this is why I didn't fully cut this out until now. All that's left is use my oscillating multi-tool and cut this out. Watch how I use one hand to hold it and my second hand to brace it as I make my cuts. I put my second hand on the wall and use my thumb to precisely position it. I try it out and it fits perfectly. Okay, let's next terminate the Cat5e connector to match up the other end at the telecom distribution module using our picture and notes.
So number 1 is white blue. You can kind of see it in the picture. Number 2 is blue. 3 is white brown. 4 is green. 5 is white green. 6 is brown. 7 is white orange. And 8 is orange. But you don't put it in a perfect order. You put it in the order that's on the connector. So the way these wires go in are like this. So on one side I need 4 wires. On the other side I need 4 wires. So this back wire, this first wire, has to be 5. And 5 is white green, so I have white green. 3 is white brown, so I have white brown. 1 is white blue, so I have white blue. And then number 1 is blue, so I have blue. And then I'm going to flip it this way because it has to stay in this order. You're gonna have to read upside down. But this first wire is 4. 4 is green, so I have green. 6 is brown, I have brown. 8 is orange, I have orange. And then 7 is white orange, and I have white orange. So now I have to stick these in here.
This was the Klein Tools data cable installation kit I bought at HD years back. There are many different options you can purchase. This one includes plugs if you need that for your project, but we will be just using the punch down tool. Let me show you how.
And you stick it in, and it shoves the wire down, makes the connection, and you want the longer part on the outside, so it cuts it. So when I do this side, I want the longer part on the outside, so it cuts it.
So I insert the wires into the correct different slots matching the picture, pushing them in as far as I can, and then using the punch down tool. It seats the wire, and that's what makes the connection. As you just saw, the punch down tool also has a blade to cut the wire, which needs to be facing to the outside. Now on the side of the connector is a picture of the two wiring standards, T568A and B, which you can use one or the other to match the two ends. But I didn't want to have to change the RJ45 plug on the other end at the telecom distribution module, saving myself a step, which again is why I'm just matching up the two ends. The data doesn't care what color wire it's going through, the two ends just need a match. Eventually I give the wires a wiggle, then pull it out because the blade doesn't always cut all the way through. I'm using a non-impact punch down tool. Finally, you connect this cap and that's it. It's pretty easy. We just converted the phone line to hardwired internet. Let's go test our work. This is what I use to test my network wiring. You plug the remote tester to one end, then the main network tester to the other by using the included cord, and turn it on. What it does is it sends a test signal through the 8 wires so you can verify both ends match. See it counting down 1 through 8? Now you just check the other end and you can see it also counting down 1 through 8. So we're good. If it was jumping all around and not in sequence, we would have to re-terminate the jack. Okay, let's pull all the other media wires. I insert my fish rod into the same hole to keep the network wires together, add my thin wire to the tip to have a loop to tie off of. I picked up this 15-foot Cat5e Ethernet cable, and I wish Home Depot would sell black, not yellow, and attach it to the loop by bending it over and taping it with electrical tape. I pull it up through the fire block and unwind the electrical tape. I leave it draped over the TV mount just like with the coax cable to keep it out of my way, but positioned ready to be plugged into the TV once it's hung. Here's a shot from the top and the bottom so you can clearly see the run. I take a look to make sure nothing is tangled and it's where I want it. Okay, let's pull the 4 HDMI cords. I don't need to pull my thinner wire loop off, I just maneuver it through the hole. I'm going to pull 2 HDMI cords at a time through 2 different holes. I'm going to use these 10-foot 8K nylon braided, universally compatible HDMI cables. I purchased them from Amazon. Now check out how I staggered the HDMI plugs so they can be pulled through the hole. I make sure one is lower and one is higher so they don't go through the hole at the same time. And then I wrap the electrical tape around the plugs to hold it in place. I make the pull. Here's a shot of them slipping through the hole. You see, by staggering the HDMI plugs, they pull right through. I just gotta unwind the tape. I take another look up the wall just to make sure the wires are where I want them and not tangled on the electrical wires or something else I don't want. Everything looks good. Let's pull the next 2. Up they go. Now the reason why I'm pulling 4 HDMI wires is my TV has 4 HDMI ports, so I want one for each. They have HDMI switchers, so you can just run one wire in the wall, but I prefer to run 4 separate HDMI wires and switch the input on the TV. At the end of this video, you will see with this TV, you don't even need to do that. But either way works. I take another peek up and make sure nothing's tangled up. Everything's looking good. Let me show you how I run extra pull strings. I do this in case in the future, I need to run another wire in the wall. So I already pulled one. This is the second one you see me pulling now. I double check it's not tangled up, which is extra important because if I do use them, I don't want whatever I'm pulling to get caught up. To recap, I tape the pull strings with painter's tape. You'll see me wind them in a loop after I finish. Here are the 4 HDMI cables, the Cat5e Ethernet cable coming from my switch in the laundry room. I'll send an internet connection up through this yellow wire. Up here I have 2 pull strings taped here, and the rest of the media wires waiting here. Let's install the low voltage bracket next. I start by pulling all the wires through the bracket. I'm feeding the HDMI cables through the right one, the blue Ethernet cable through the middle, and the yellow cable through the left side. I also feed the 2 pull strings through the left side, and re-tape them to the wall to keep them out of the way. Next, I level the bracket and screw it in. As you tighten the screws, the mounting wings, sometimes called flaps, clamp against the drywall securing the bracket. I check the level one last time, the bubble's right in the middle. Let me show you what we're going to install next. This is called a Levington 1-gang Decora Quick Port 4-port insert in white. And I'm going to use 4 of these quick port HDMI connectors. They clip on like this, and you'll see me plug in the 4 HDMI cords to the back. Let's go install all of this. The way you assemble this is, you insert these HDMI connectors on the bottom and then rock up and they clip into place. It's as easy as that. Now whatever device I want to send up to the TV, I plug into these 4 ports. Gaming consoles, streaming device, DVD player, if you're still even using one of those. So after plugging in the 4 HDMI cords, I push the wires in the wall, then pull up from the media plate cutout to take up the slack, and it's ready to be screwed in. So I screw in the insert and we have one of the 3 completed. Here's a shot from the side so you can see how it looks installed. Sometimes I would use black electrical tape to make sure it doesn't get unplugged, but the back wall is holding them in just fine. Let's install the next insert. So this is exactly like what we just installed, but it's a 2-port insert this time, and I used a snap-in blank for future spare addition if needed. Then I install a Cat 5e jack on the bottom and the blank on the top, and screw it in. Let's install the last piece. I'm going to use this recessed Decora insert. This is what it looks like, and feed the 2 pull strings and the yellow Ethernet wire that's going up to the TV through it. You will see me plug the yellow wire directly into the jack to bring hardwired internet to the TV for now. Now that everything is fed through the recessed Decora insert, I screw it in with its 2 screws. All that's left is to install the 3-gain Decora wall plate. So I feed the yellow wire and the 2 pull strings through and screw in the 6 screws. Check out how I leave the pull strings neatly wound up in a loop. Everything is completed. I'll plug the yellow Ethernet cable in once I install the cabinets. Let's wire up the receptacle on the right next. I start by stripping the 2 wires not stripped yet. Then I prep the 2 ground wires by twisting them together and adding a pigtail ground wire, then a wire nut. All that's left is to make a loop facing clockwise and attach it to the green ground screw on the receptacle. I next loop one of the hot black wires, then the 2 white neutral wires, and screw the neutral wires onto the receptacle silver color screws. In most residential applications, if I don't need to add a pigtail wire, I don't. I just let the receptacle make the termination feeding through. We will have to add pigtail wires to the other receptacle we tapped into though. I next loop the final hot black wire and attach the 2 black hot wires to the brass color screws. Then flip it over to double check all the other screws are still tight. Next I back out the mounting screws so I can wrap some electrical tape around the receptacle, and then work the wires and receptacle into the electrical box, screwing in the screws at first with my drill and then by hand with my Phillips screwdriver. Finally, I give it a baby wipe because there was a smudge for some reason and screw in the wall plate. Let's wire up the media plate receptacle next. I strip the hot and neutral wires, make a loop on the ground wire, then insert the wires in the media plate receptacle box. I attach the ground wire to the green terminal screw, then the neutral and hot wires. This receptacle uses a clamp style terminal for the hot and neutral wires, so I didn't have to loop those ends. I wrap the terminals over with electrical tape, then use my drill to screw in the screws most of the way, finishing them by hand. Next we will install the media plate. It attaches to these 4 mounting studs with 4 screws. So I position the electrical box on the mounting studs and screw in the 4 screws. What I like about this peerless-av media plate, it comes with this Hubble surge protected receptacle, and if it takes an electrical surge, it gives you an audible alarm, so you know you need to change it out. So now all that's left is to feed the media wires through it. So I start with the 4 HDMI cables, then the Ethernet and coax cable, finally the 2 extra pull strings. I hope you guys are seeing how it's not hard to hide and run your media wires through a wall and fire block. I retape the pull strings out of my way. Let's secure the media plate next. I tighten 2 of the screws for now, remove the blue tape, and wrap up the 2 pull strings. Next I drape the wires over the TV mount, and here's a shot how this part of the project came out. I hope you guys are gaining your DIY confidence to attempt this project after watching this video. Make sure you watch to the end for the big reveal. Let's work on the last of the electrical next so we can get the cabinets installed. After turning off the breaker, I removed my sign reminding me this receptacle was hot. I checked there was no power with my voltage tester. The lights for this room are on the same circuit, so I had to keep the power on so I wouldn't be working in the dark. I start by taking the bare ground wire from the added wire I ran and add it to the other ground wires, reattaching the wire nut. Like I mentioned earlier, for this receptacle we need to add pigtail wires. So I prep a neutral and hot pigtail. I strip one end about an inch and then strip and loop the other end. I next take the stripped end of the white neutral pigtail wire and add it to the other 3 white wires. Then repeat that with the black hot pigtail wire, adding it to the other 3 black wires. I use my lineman's pliers to twist them together tightly and cut them to length. Then I add the wire nuts. All that's left is to attach the looped end of the white pigtail wire to the silver screw terminal and tighten it down. Then of course repeating that for the hot black wire, attaching the looped end to the brass screw terminal and tightening it down. I add electrical tape covering the terminals, then I tuck the wires into the electrical box. I next use my drill to screw in the receptacle mounting screws most of the way in, then screw them by hand securing it to the electrical box. Finally installing the wall plate. Next, you're going to see me use my receptacle tester to check everything is wired correctly. So I plug it in and turn the breaker back on, and the receptacle tester is indicating that it's installed correctly. Here's a shot of the one that we added to the right of the media wires. It's good. And then next I check the surge protected one in the media plate. It's good. And again, if it takes an electrical surge, it gives you an audible alarm, so you know you need to change it out to keep the TV protected.
So I got this tied into that. I got my patch cable ready to go into a splitter, 2 pull strings in case I need to run anything else. That's hardwire and internet, 4 HDMI, another outlet that I tied into here, and then this outlet is tied into here. It has surge protection, and then I have my patch cable here running down to the splitter. This goes to my attic to my antenna. In case I lose internet, I have backup TV channels and the 4 HDMI cords, so I can just change the input on the TV on whatever's plugged into these 4 HDMIs. So all that's left is to get this TV and hang it.
Okay, here it is hung. My neighbor and his son came over and helped me, and I didn't want to film them. I covered it for now in case I bump into it during the cabinet final install. Let's do that next so we can get to the big reveal. Okay, so our next step is to cut the back of the cabinet so there's access to everything we just installed. I start by using a pencil on its side and trace the wall plate's perimeter. Now remember, these paper templates are the exact size of the cabinet they come with. So I cut it out, and you're going to see me next how I match it back up to the bottom of the cabinet to mark exactly where I need to make my cutout.
So I kind of taped the paper right to the edge of a table. This way I can use my triangle here and get a nice straight level line. And basically what I did was I kind of matched up where I see everything line up, and I drew a line and drew a line, just estimating where it's all going to end up at. And then from that line I just found something like this file because I want to cut the hole slightly bigger, and then I just again use my triangle to make nice straight lines. And I just made an outline that now I'm going to just cut this hole. I was going to leave a space in the middle here, but since the receptacle is so close, I'm just going to make one big hole. I'm just going to cut the hole slightly bigger than where this ends up at.
The easiest way to do this is to put a piece of cardboard under the paper template and use your utility knife to make a straight cut with a metal ruler. Let me show you how it matches up with the bottom of the cabinet. I put the template exactly how it was before, and then right to the back of the cabinet to make sure the orientation is correct. And then you just tape it exactly outlining the bottom of the cabinet. I next mark the 4 edges of the cutout, removing the template, and using the same piece of template I just cut out to outline the cutout for the back of the cabinet. Let's cut it out next. I use a metal ruler with my utility knife and make scoring passes on my marked lines. Make sure you change out your blade to make this a little easier. This back board is thicker than a piece of cardboard, and it takes quite a few scoring passes before you break through. I make my final passes and the blade is pushing through. It would be better to be doing this from the finished side. I noticed there are some dingleberries hanging on, so I put my metal ruler on the other side and cut and remove them. Okay, let's see how it looks. I install the cabinet and give it a push down, locking it into the bracket. Check for level. The way you fine tune the level is with these 2 screws on the back. You just higher or lower these screws to get the cabinet level, but also each cabinet even with each other. One final check for level and it looks good. Okay, now to put the wall plates on. So not to bore you, I'm going to jump ahead so you don't have to watch 8 screws being screwed in. Next I pull out the extra 2 pull strings, but the Cat 5e Ethernet cable was a little stuck, so I get a screwdriver and fish it out. I leave it in the cabinet for now. Now I need to make the cutout for the single receptacle, but realize one of the backboard clips is in my way, so I remove it. I next mark the edges of the cutout, remove the template, then use my ruler to draw the outline of my cutout. I only have to make 3 lines because this cutout goes to the sidewall. Then I use a metal ruler to make my cuts. You will see that this cutout didn't come out as good as the last one, so you'll see what I do to clean it up toward the end of this video soon. I next get ready to hang the second cabinet. I remove the paper template, and the pain in the butt part is these little paper dingleberries left behind the hanging bracket. After removing the painter's tape, I use a screwdriver to clean up the last of them. I hang the cabinet, give it a tap down. Now check out how the cutout looks from this side. So like I mentioned, you'll see how I clean it up. Okay, let's install the third cabinet and the right side cubes. I continue removing the templates and the painter's tape. You guys can see here the receptacle that unfortunately fell right between 2 cabinets that I capped off. I use my metal ruler to help cut the paper out without scratching the paneling. Now that I have it cleaned up, I hang the third cabinet and the stacked cubes for this side. And here's a shot how it's looking so far. We're almost to the big reveal. Leave me a comment below what you guys think about these hanging IKEA cabinets for a small media room. Let's hang the last of the cubes. So you guys know the drill. I remove the tape in the template and hang the left side cubes. And now all that's left is to install the shelves and the doors. I start with the shelves. You have to decide what height and separation you want between the two shelves, but it can be changed. So I set the shelf support pegs in the middle of the 3 pre-drilled holes, then install the 2 shelves. Next I install the doors. This can be a little tricky. You install these insert cups, then install the doors. Once you get both the doors on, you have to align them. That's the tricky part. This first cabinet was hard to get the doors aligned, but got easier for the last 2. You move the tab left or right, checking the alignment. It's a little bit of trial and error I needed to learn, but I finally get it. It took quite a few attempts to get it right. Here's a shot so you can see how the door alignment came out. Okay, I'm going to fast forward even faster the last 2 cabinet shelves and door insulation. You guys don't need a play-by-play commentary 2 more times on the same thing. Then I'm going to show you how I attempted to clean up that single cutout. I got some of this door U-shaped molding and I put it along the edge here since I didn't cut this one that great. Got 2 pull strings right here in case I need to pull another wire. Got the internet going up to the TV. 4 HDMI so I can send whatever I want. Right now it's the switch and a receptacle right here. This is charging the 2 controllers. I put a surge protected power strip here since a lot of things need to be protected. I'm considering putting holes in the corner of the shelves because then if I put other game consoles here, I can just bring the wires up without having to go in the front here. I have it like this temporarily because I don't know where this is all going to end up. I might put this here. So as I'm deciding, before I start cutting holes in the shelf, I'm thinking about it, seeing where everything's going to end up. I'm probably going to keep all the devices in the middle cabinet, so when I add my PlayStation, I'll add a network switch so everything will be hardwired to the internet. But here's one last shot how everything looks inside.
So this TV mount is awesome, how you can pull the TV away from the wall. And you can see everything coming out of the media plate. 2 pull strings in case I need to pull anything else. The patch cord carrying the internet. You got the antenna TV and 4 HDMI cords. And the power cord, of course, does have it wrapped up here and it's plugged into a surge protected receptacle. You just have the cords coming right here. And you got the coax cable for antenna TV. You have the patch cord plugged into here with the internet and the 4 HDMI cords. You just change the input on the TV and whatever you have plugged in down in the cabinet will now be shown on the TV. So here's a shot from behind, guys, so you can just kind of see what it looks like. And then you don't see any of the wires, of course. Now you can leave the TV just like this and you can just put it right in your face while you're sitting here if you want to just put the movie or the video game right in your face. It's pretty cool. And then it easily just pushes back. The camera makes it feel smaller and back, but it's like right here in your face. It's so cool. I wanted to show you a shot with how the TV looks with something showing on it. I never needed to add an Apple TV streaming device because this TV already has Apple TV Plus and the ability to AirPlay built in. And then anything that's streaming on one of the HDMI inputs shows up on the bottom here and you can just select it. No need to change the input. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and I showed you how a big TV can go into a small bedroom if you don't have a bonus room or a basement. I gotta make plans for surround sound next to really enhance the experience. Please remember to hit the thumbs up if you like this video and be sure to subscribe to see more home DIY videos just like this one. Click on any of these links on the screen to check out my other home DIY videos. One I show you in even more detail how to mount a TV on the wall to hide all your media wires. The other how to install recessed lighting. Thanks again for watching. Bye everyone.